all the smoke from. And our first presenter is Mark Mahon, and he's from council. He's a logger.
Hey, thank you, Madam Chairman, committee, and the audience. So on a good note, I don't have a PowerPoint. We're not going to do anything on Zoom. Hopefully you'll recognize that I will be an odd enough speaker. I use enough passion in my message that there'll be some take-home points from this.
Yeah.
A little personal.
Mark, can you speak right into that? You might need to raise it up a little.
Okay.
Yeah, we're live streaming, so everybody will be able to hear you. Thanks.
Okay, a little personal history about myself. For those of you that don't know me, I'm pretty familiar with a few folks. Born and raised in Council, Idaho. Spent the last 50 years there, graduated high school there. Went to the University of Idaho, and they felt sorry for me, gave me a couple degrees in forestry. Came back with my brother and parents, took over Mahon Logging. So right now we're the biggest logging contractor in the council area, along with several other loggers. I was also late for a meeting one time, and they made me the president of the Associated Logging Contractors of Idaho. I've had the opportunity to serve as president of the Intermountain Logging Association. Basically, I've been on the Forest Products Commission. Any committee to represent Idaho's timber industry, I've been on it. I've been back to Washington, D.C., testify. So I think I'm got the credentials to stand here. One thing that I hope to accomplish at the end of this is to ask some questions that I don't know the answers for, but I hope you guys are at least asking the same thing. And I do have a personal story that I'll get to it now because that's one thing that I was asked to talk about. So 2 weeks ago on Saturday the 8th, I got a text from a fellow logger, Jim Heilman out of council, that said, are you watching the fire head towards Hot Potato? So Hot Potato is the name of my job that at the Little Weezer River, kind of east of Indian Valley. So there are two Forest Service jobs laying side by side, 9 months worth of work. So I look, and I was on the couch watching the Cowboys play football. I look out my kitchen window and look at it, and I did not text him back. I got on the phone immediately, and he told me, you better get a lowboy coming. And he says, if you need help, I can bring mine. So in one text, and this is a logger. He was just being a tourist out on a Sunday afternoon to watch the fire go. There was no response from the Forest Service or anybody. We had roughly $4 million worth of equipment headed right in the path of that fire. I got a text out to my guys. We met at my shop in council. And within 15 minutes, we were leaving. It was, you look out the window and you're just horrified. I mean, it looks like a nuclear bomb has gone off. So our lowboy and Jim Heilman's lowboy, we left together, and I got a third one. I had 6 machines that I needed to get moved out of the fire. Then I got a text from another guy that's in council and fire, says, hey, you better go and look at your equipment. And he was home watching the football game as well. So that was the official communication from the federal government. You might want to go look at your equipment. And then, so the 2 lowboys go, and I had a third one coming about a half an hour later. So we got 3 lowboys going. I knew I had to get 6 machines loaded up and out of the way. Our 2 made it in. The third one was about a half an hour behind us. Later, I learned that he could not get to us. By the time we got in, and he was a half an hour behind us, the fire had jumped the Little Weezer Little Reeser Creek and the road and was headed north in that much time. And we had no idea. We had no communication from anybody behind us that what the fire behavior was doing. We could see this big flume of smoke coming at us. So anyway, we got our 2 low boys there. I kept looking around the corner for the third one. It never showed. So, I mean, we just start loading up our iron. We grab the most expensive first. First 2 machines are $800,000 each. Got them loaded, got them headed up. Then we got, one is on rubber, it's a skidder, so it moves pretty fast. And then everything else was on tracks, so we just started walking them up the road. I was in the last one. I left my pickup down at and we had logs. We had logs in the deck, ready to load. We had trees fell, bunched up, ready to get processed into logs that next morning. All that's burnt. All that's totally a complete loss, absorbed by the logger. I walked the last machine up a couple miles, and then I was walking back to get my pickup, come around this corner, and I just get hit with this big wave of heat. You know, just kind of like you open an oven. And then I started running a little bit and picked up my pace. I got down to my pickup, and I could see flames, 100 yards behind me, and I just got the hell out of there. We did get the machines out. We got them to safety. The third lowboy ended up backing his lowboy about 5 miles backwards to get to a spot where he could get it turned around. So that was my lava story. But some questions. Why? And this has been posed all morning. And you guys have heard from PhDs and bureaucratic people, but now you get to talk to a logger. I am the tool. People like me, contractors like us, we are the tools that need to be used. As a kid, growing up in the council area, and Representative Shepard can attest to this, the loggers were called and asked, and we worked with the Forest Service to be boots on the ground to help in the firefighting effort. What happens today? Loggers are evacuated first. We are not asked to do this work. What does a logger do? We cut down trees, we skid them out of the way, and behind us we leave a dirt path. That's a pretty good fire line. We do that day in, day out, and we do it very well. We are the best in the world that does this. We use the best equipment to do this, and we are not asked. Okay? So hopefully somebody will be asking why. One of the reasons why is because of the Viper system. Okay, we've heard of Viper, I hope. Okay, Viper is the system that the federal government is going to use to sign up contractors. From a logging contractor's point of view, it is horrible. They pay good wages. They will pay almost twice the prevailing wage for a piece of equipment. But we have told them time and time again, I will not. They're going to call me at 2 o'clock in the morning and want one piece of equipment to go to South Dakota or to Colorado or Washington. And we've been asked this. And it's like, sorry, I can't disable my whole company to give you one machine. You can take all of us or none of us. Fair enough? So the Viper system is a way for a lot of people to make a lot of money. And there is no incentive built in the current firefighting structure. There's no incentive to put the fire out. Guys, there is no incentive for those folks to put the fire out. They are good people, great people. Yeah, most of them are from back east. They don't understand our weather patterns, our timber, our ecology. Great people. They're making a living. I have nothing against that. But there's no incentive. These project fires are just nothing but a joke. They are very few boots on the ground. They choose to not fight the fire. Rather, they come in from behind it and just kind of herd it around the edges, all right? So what we, as the logging industry, and I'm putting my ALC president hat on, are hoping that, and there can be some future discussions, that at the local levels, okay, at the local levels, whether it be the ranger or at the supervisory level, that, hey, we can make a piece of paper, right? Let's get together in the spring. Let's identify the assets. Let's identify the people, okay? Let's get you trained. You can watch a video. We've all been in the little pop shelter. We're not afraid of fire. Loggers do the most dangerous job in the world every single day, all right? We're not afraid of the environment. We're not afraid of the work, okay? So I'm sick and tired of these firefighting people say, oh, we don't have the resources. We don't have resources. Okay, in the council area alone, everybody's kind of familiar with council, right? That's the town you go to when Highway 55 screwed up and you're trying to go to McCall. Okay, council alone, there are 5 logging. This is just council. This is not talking the Emmett or the Horseshoe Bend area. And this is definitely not, this is just a micro spot. Council, I got 50 loggers, a dozen dozers, 2 skidders, 7 feller bunchers. This is just loggers. This is not the dirt workers, okay? This is just the loggers. I lost track of water trucks, road graders, and excavators. And it's basically the same set of people for the Horseshoe Bend, Garden Valley, Emmett area, all right? Those are just people that I know, you know, and I don't know the rest of the construction area. The resources are here. The system chooses not to use us, okay? The resources are there. I have no interest to go to Lake Tahoe and fight a fire, but I will definitely go to Ola, or I will go to Bear, Idaho, and protect my neighbors in my community. Period. And that is not just Mahon Logging. That is every logger I have talked to. And we just came back from an ALC meeting, and it was unanimous that I deliver this message. If it's Orfino, St. Mary's, very, very few of us loggers are signed up in Viper. And that's a whole nother hearing, Madam Chairman. Trust me, that thing is a disaster. So in the good old days, you know, we all think of the good old days, right? The loggers were asked to go to work. And I remember watching G.I. Morgan Katz and Rice logging and Icola logging, and those guys were called. They were called, and they responded, and they went to action. And there is 0 incidences of a logger, you know, being killed in that effort or whatever. So get us trained. Let's get a nice new shiny legal pad, and we can staple it to the wall, you know, that says, you know, Mahon Logging, and put our list of equipment and our people, Heilman, you know, Tucker, Shepherd, whatever. And then when they go, oh, we don't have resources, well, let's go and pull this piece of paper off the wall and call these folks. Let's get us trained. You know, we just want to be there for the initial attack and put the fire out. We heard it from Mike Regier. Mike's last statement should have resonated. You know, if we can put fires out, we can put fires out when they're small. But once you're looking at, you know, a 100-foot wall of flames, and that fire burned 33,000 acres in 12 hours. It burned 9 months of my work in you know, a day. So that's just one incident. So that's kind of the way I've taken it, Madam Chairman. You heard the lava story, and that's the message that I was brought to deliver, is that we are here. We are a tool. We can talk about ecology. I got a forestry degree. Fire is important in the development of forests in the Intermountain. I can talk that till we're blue in the face. That is an undeniable fact. However, it was meant to be low-intensity ground fires and not crown fires, period. So unfortunately, the biggest problem is this little thing called humans. So we're on the surface and we're here. So, you know, if you take humans out, there's no issue. But, you know, we like to recreate, you know, and yeah, some of us are not educated. We're not aware of humidity and fuel loading and the effects, you know, of, you know, aspect and wind and yada, yada. And you can see the effects of that. The financial losses are unestimable. And you know, and then the damages to air quality. These fires are devastating. You know, the big word that the Forest Service likes to bounce around is, oh, it burned in a mosaic pattern. You know, let's all hold hands and be grateful that it burned in a mosaic pattern. No, it didn't. Those watersheds are toast. It's just dumping ash into the creeks. I don't know how many tons of mercury, arsenic, and lead have been stuffed into the atmosphere. That's undeniable, guys. They have PhDs that can measure that. So, you know, those are some of the questions that need to be asked and answered. And all because, who knows why, but in the good old days, you know, Representative Shepherd, you can probably remember the good old days, we didn't have these fires, right? You know, back in the 80s, there were a lot of loggers in the woods. When a fire would pop up, I've been there with my dad. We'd come to work and there's a fire. We'd just go put the fire out. So this is a true story. Jim Wasmuth, forester for Evergreen, the Tamarack Mill, got a call from Jake Brown Brothers Logging out of Emmett. This happened about 2 weeks ago. And he said, he called him, Jim, there's a fire, in front of us. Do I put it out? And Jim was going, yes, put the fire out. But Jake said, well, are they going to come back and arrest me? You know, he didn't know if it was on Forest Service land or state land. And you can call him and ask. So they put the fire out. They got it within an acre. Life's good. But that happened time and time again back in the 80s. Those fires, we just put them out. Yeah, so many of us, that was just our normal activities. So now we're evacuated. We're not asked to participate. There's a whole nother issue of debating Viper. It's going to take congressional action. I don't know if it can be done. The state model is very good that the IDL uses. They have a system where they can train us and use us. And then I believe that if it's an IDL fire and it goes on to federal land, that we can cross the boundaries in that effort, you know. But take, for example, the lava fire. When it blew up out of Ola and it was headed right at us, we were available. We were there. And they didn't do anything for 3 days until the team showed up. And the team came from Wyoming, great people. That lava fire sat there, and I believe I've heard between 4 and 5 days, and it just sat there and smoldered, and, you know, they analyzed it and studied it. And then they had the big winds picked up and it was gone. So at that point, it was too late. But during those 4 or 5 days, there was a whole lot of loggers that were available with some of the best equipment and technology to put a line around it. And then, you know, let us get control over it, then bring in the team or whatever, and then we'll go back to logging, you know. So that is basically my story. Do good on time?
You're doing really well.
Okay.
I have a picture on my phone I'm going to pass around to the committee, because on that Sunday, when I was outside and I looked over to the east, I saw this enormous explosion. And I text Dustin Miller immediately, the IDL director, and said, I hope this isn't one of yours. And he said, I don't know what fire that is. That can't be the Stanley fire. About 20 minutes later, he texts me back and he says, that is the lava fire blowing up, I hope. Nothing is in the way. And Mark was in the way.
We were in the way.
As were many of my neighbors' cattle on their allotments that are now just melted into the ground, along with all of our wildlife, our watershed, all of Mark's future sales, his log decks. It is incredible the damage that was done because the Forest Service wouldn't put that fire out when they could have. It's unconscionable.
I do have video if somebody wants to see it. If I had more time, but hey, I'm a working logger. I don't have time to do PowerPoints and all that kind of stuff. I got the stuff on my phone, but I remember coming around this corner when this big wave of heat hit me, and I did take a video. And as I later learned, I was about a mile away from a wall of flames, and you can just see it was moving. Had I known better, I probably should not have been there. And I remember Jim Heilman, and he says, boy, that was one of the dumber things we've done, isn't it? But that's basically a message a unified message from the loggers, is that we're here, we're available to work, we want to help out our communities, we really don't want to go 5 states away, but the Viper system is not allowing that. Okay, you can talk about global warming and fuel loadings and carbon sequestration and all this stuff, but to me, we got to focus on getting the next fire knocked down before it blows up again. We're willing to do that. We're not after trying to we're not trying to retire off the federal government. That the Little Weezer drainage will be ruined for the rest of my life. Okay, so the governor has proposed this concept of what I'd like rural fire departments, right? Where the ranchers have gotten together and teamed together and then made kind of an association, kind of a legal entity. That really doesn't work for the logging model because loggers are always moving around. You know, we don't harvest the same pasture, you know, year after year, or the same grazing allotment. You know, we're gonna bounce around wherever the timber sales are. You know, and you know, in Idaho, it takes about 100 years to regrow that stand. You can do it faster on plantations, 50 years if you fertilize it and yada yada. But for the most part, in our area, you're talking 100 years. So those watersheds are toast. Yeah, and here in a couple years, the brush will grow back, and you know, it'll start healing itself. But so now that's going to end up forcing more wildlife down into the roads. You know, I don't know how many thousands of acres of winter range burnt in that lava fire. You know, that's prime antelope, mule deer habitat. You know, grazing pastures, miles and miles of fences. One of your ranching neighbors, Ron Branch, called me, and I went and looked at his timber, and I says, Ron, it's too far burnt. It's not much value. So I had another neighbor out of Indian Valley, and he was in tears. So he had 160. Anyway, he was homesteaded in the 1890s, and that guy had done everything right. That was a beautiful forest, and it burned up in a couple hours. So with that, I will conclude my comments. If there's any questions, I'll be around for the while.
Representative Shepherd.
I know you got a loaded one, Representative Shepherd.
So back in the days when I used to have to work for a living and worked in the woods in the late 80s, early 90s, I was working for Jerry Robinson, Adam McCall, and we were on a Forest Service job there, and a fire started. We were under contract with, part of the contract was that we had to suppress and help fight wildfires at the time. Whether we wanted to or not, we were required to by contract with the Forest Service. So fire was about 2 miles away. We jumped on it. we had a fire line essentially built completely around it before the Forest Service showed up. When the Forest Service showed up, the hard work was done, we let them have it, and we walked away. So what you're telling me now is that is no longer the case, that you are not required by your timber sale harvest contract to fight fire?
Chairman Boyle, Representative, thank you. We are within 5 miles. So within 5 miles of our location, we are still, as long as we're within the timber sale area. So if it's across the drainage, no, we're not encouraged, asked to go fight it. If it's within, I mean, and they boundary a timber sale. I mean, it's a huge circle. So within 5 miles of our location, we are required. So I might have misleaded the audience in that regard, but still, the fire that came on the lava fire, we were right there, you know. But at that point, it's too big, you know. We were getting out. So, but like what Jake Brown did, you know, he was not given permission. It was not on his job. He was just basically being a good Samaritan and put the fire out, but he was afraid of getting arrested. But so yes, I still have to have shovels, and we have you know, fire extinguishers and that kind of stuff. We have to have a water pumper on site, but if the fire is beyond that boundary, no.
Just a follow-up statement. So to your other point about once a fire's come through and went, I live right, obviously in Riggins, right by the Big Salmon River, and it's coming out of the Frank Church. And right now is the lowest the water is all year. I mean, it's just a trickle compared to when it's high water, and it's running chocolate. That river in the middle of the summer is running chocolate, and that's because a storm up in the Frank Church dumped a little bit of rain, and all that sediment from them massive wildfires is all running right in the river. And so anybody that wants to say that we don't want to log because it puts too much sediment in the river, well, that's absolutely ridiculous compared to what the sediment's put in by these massive wildfires. So if you truly want to protect the rivers and protect the habitat, you'd better stop letting the forest burn.
True statement. Well, I'm grateful that you're safe, Mark.
Thank you.
As all of us are. Thank you very much for being here. Okay, next we'll have Lance Hogg come up, and he is going to talk about the paddock fire. And he'll introduce himself, and then we're going to have a little short video that a TV station here locally did on that fire, and then Lance will continue.